Have you ever had one of those days where nothing is really wrong, but nothing feels right either? You ate, you scrolled, you watched a few videos, you maybe ordered something nice online, and yet by the end of the night, you are lying in bed feeling strangely empty. Not sad exactly, not stressed, just flat. Like someone turned down the volume on your entire life and you cannot figure out how to turn it back up. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know something before we go any further. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not ungrateful. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is not you. The problem is what you have been feeding it. Today, we are going to talk about something that touches almost every single one of us, something most people never realize is happening inside their own heads. We are going to talk about cheap dopamine, and more importantly, we are going to talk about how it is slowly, quietly, almost invisibly making your real joy feel dull. Let me take you back to a simple morning. You wake up. Before your eyes are even fully open, your hand reaches for the phone. You do not even think about it. It is automatic, like breathing. You check notifications, scroll through social media, maybe watch a short video or two. Within 5 minutes of waking up, your brain has already received dozens of little hits of stimulation. A like here, a funny clip there, a shocking headline, a satisfying video of someone cutting soap. Each one of those tiny moments sends a small burst of dopamine through your brain. Dopamine is the chemical that makes you feel anticipation, excitement, the pull towards something rewarding. It is not the pleasure itself. It is the wanting. It is the voice that says, check one more time, watch one more, scroll a little further. Now here's what most people do not understand about dopamine. It is not inherently bad. In fact, dopamine is one of the most beautiful tools your brain has. It is what gets you out of bed in the morning. It is what makes you curious about the world. It is what makes you look forward to a meal with a friend, a walk in the evening, a book you have been meaning to read. Dopamine, when it is working properly, is the bridge between you and the things that make life meaningful. But there is a catch. Your dopamine system was never designed for the world we live in now. Thousands of years ago, dopamine rewarded you for finding food, for building shelter, for connecting with your tribe. These things took effort. They took time. And the reward at the end was rich and satisfying because your brain had to work for it. The gap between wanting and getting was wide, and that gap is where the magic happened. That is where anticipation grew, where effort felt purposeful, where the reward at the end tasted like victory. Now think about today. You want entertainment? It is in your pocket. You want food? It is in your pocket. You want validation? You post a photo and watch the likes roll in within minutes. You want novelty? Open any app, and there is an endless stream of new content designed specifically to grab your attention and never let go. Every single one of these things gives you dopamine, but none of them require effort. None of them require patience. None of them require you to wait, to struggle, to build towards something. And that is the problem. When your brain gets flooded with dopamine from easy, instant sources over and over and over again, something starts to change. It is called desensitization. Your dopamine receptors, the little docks in your brain that catch the chemical and turn it into a feeling, start to dull. They start to need more stimulation to feel the same thing. It is like turning up the volume on your headphones every day. Eventually, normal volume sounds like silence. And that is exactly what happens to your ability to feel joy. You eat a home-cooked meal and it tastes fine, but it does not make you feel warm inside the way it used to. You go for a walk and the sunset is beautiful, but you glance at it for 2 seconds and then reach for your phone. You sit with a friend and have a real conversation, but part of your brain is restless, waiting for something more exciting, more stimulating, more fast. The simple, quiet, slow things that used to fill you up now feel like they are not enough, and you start to wonder what is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain has just gotten used to a level of stimulation that real life cannot match. When you spend hours scrolling through perfectly curated moments, dramatic stories, shocking clips, and algorithmically optimized content, your brain recalibrates. It starts to treat that level of stimulation as the baseline. And everything below that baseline, everything normal, everything real, starts to feel dull by comparison. not because it is dull, but because your brain has lost the ability to notice it. This is not a theory. This is something neuroscience has been studying for years. Researchers call it the hedonic treadmill, and it is one of the most important concepts for understanding why so many people today feel strangely unhappy even when their lives are objectively good. The treadmill works like this. You get something that makes you feel good. Your brain adjusts. The good feeling fades. You need something bigger, something newer, something more intense to feel the same thing again. And so you chase. You chase the next purchase, the next notification, the next binge-worthy show, the next viral moment. And with every chase, the finish line moves a little further away. Let me describe what this actually feels like in everyday life, because I think you will recognize it. You buy something you have been wanting for weeks. You feel a rush when you click order. You feel a smaller rush when it arrives. You open it, you use it once or twice, and then it sits on a shelf collecting dust, and you are already thinking about the next thing. You start a new show and you are hooked for 3 episodes, but by episode 5, your mind is wandering and you are scrolling your phone while the show plays in the background. You plan a weekend outing, and when the moment arrives, you spend half of it taking photos for social media instead of actually being there. The experience itself is not the point anymore. The anticipation, the share, the validation, the novelty, that is what your brain is after. And the actual living of your life becomes this blurry, half-attended background noise. This is not your fault. These platforms, these apps, these products, they are designed by some of the smartest people in the world to keep you engaged. They are not designed to make you feel satisfied. They are designed to make you want more. There is a reason you cannot watch just one short video. There is a reason the feed never ends. There is a reason notifications pop up at exactly the moments you are most likely to open the app. Every pixel is engineered to trigger your dopamine system just enough to keep you hooked without ever giving you enough to feel complete. And the saddest part of all of this is not the time you lose. It is the joy you lose. It is the way a child's laughter used to make you stop and smile, and now it barely registers. It is the way a quiet evening used to feel peaceful, and now it feels boring. It is the way a real hug from someone who loves you used to make your whole body relax, and now you pull away after 3 seconds because your brain is already somewhere else. The richness of being alive, the texture of everyday moments, the warmth of small, ordinary things, all of it gets flattened when your dopamine system is overstimulated. I remember a time when I could sit on a porch in the evening and just listen to the rain and feel completely at peace. No phone, no agenda, no stimulation, just rain and quiet and my own thoughts. And it was enough, more than enough. It was beautiful. Somewhere along the way, that ability faded. It did not disappear all at once. It eroded slowly, like a river wearing down a stone. A little scroll here, a little snack there, a little dopamine hit here, a little more there. And one day I realized I could not sit still for 5 minutes without reaching for something. And that scared me. Not because I thought I was addicted, but because I realized I had forgotten how to just be. If any of this resonates with you, I want you to pause for a moment. Not literally, because you are listening to this, but internally, take a breath. You are not alone in this. Almost everyone around you is going through some version of the same thing. We are all living in the same dopamine-saturated world, and most of us have never been taught how to protect our ability to feel real joy. Before we go deeper into what you can actually do about this, I want to ask you something simple. If this video is making you think about your own habits, if something here feels familiar, take a second to leave a comment. Tell me what your cheap dopamine habit is. Is it scrolling? Is it snacking late at night? Is it buying things you do not need? There is no judgment here. We are all figuring this out together. And sometimes just naming the thing out loud is the first step toward changing it. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. You might be giving them exactly the conversation they did not know they needed. So let us talk about what is actually happening inside your brain when you overdo it with cheap dopamine. Imagine your dopamine system as a volume knob. When it is working well, the knob sits somewhere in the middle. A good meal turns it up a little. A meaningful conversation turns it up a little more. A big achievement, like finishing a project or running a race, turns it up significantly. And then it settles back down, ready to respond to the next real thing. That is a healthy system. That is a system that lets you feel the full range of human experience. But when you flood that system with cheap hits all day long, the knob gets stuck at high. Your brain starts to think that is normal. And to protect itself from the constant overstimulation, it does something clever but painful. It reduces the number of receptors. It turns down its own sensitivity. It is like someone who works in a noisy factory eventually losing some of their hearing. The noise never stopped. Their brain just stopped registering it at full volume. And now, when they step outside into a quiet garden, they cannot hear the birds. Not because the birds stopped singing, but because their ears forgot how to listen. That is what cheap dopamine does to your ability to feel joy. It does not destroy joy. Joy is still there. The birds are still singing, but your brain has turned down its own volume. And now, everything real, everything slow, everything quiet sounds like silence. There is another layer to this that is really important. Cheap dopamine does not just dull your joy. It also raises your threshold for discomfort. What does that mean in real life? It means that tasks which require patience, focus, or effort start to feel unbearable. Reading a book feels impossible when your brain is used to switching content every 15 seconds. Having a deep conversation feels exhausting when you are used to quick texts and emojis. Sitting with your own thoughts feels terrifying when you are used to constant stimulation. Working on a long-term goal feels pointless when your brain is trained to expect rewards in minutes, not months. This is why so many people today struggle with procrastination, with focus, with motivation. It is not because they are weak or undisciplined. It is because their dopamine system has been hijacked by a world that offers unlimited instant rewards and almost no reason to wait. When your brain expects everything to be fast and easy, anything slow and hard feels like punishment. And so you avoid it. You avoid the work. You avoid the difficult conversation. You avoid the quiet evening. You avoid the hard thing that you know would actually make your life better. But that is a lie. Some of the most meaningful moments in your life will come from doing the hard thing, from staying in the conversation when it gets uncomfortable, from sitting down to write even when you do not feel inspired, from choosing the walk over the scroll, from choosing presence over distraction. I want to share something that might shift your perspective a little. Think about the last time you felt truly, deeply happy. Not just entertained, not just distracted, but genuinely happy. The kind of happy where you felt full, where your chest felt warm, where you looked around and thought, this is enough. I am willing to bet that moment did not involve a screen. It was probably something simple, a meal with someone you love, a walk at golden hour, a child running toward you with their arms open, a quiet morning with coffee and no agenda, a moment where your brain was not chasing anything. It was just there, present, receiving the beauty of being alive without needing it to be faster or louder or shinier. That is what real joy feels like. And it has not gone anywhere. It is still available to you every single day. But to feel it again, you have to do something that sounds almost counterintuitive in a world that is always pushing you to want more. You have to let yourself get bored. I know, boredom sounds terrible. Your brain treats it like a threat, like something to escape immediately. But boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the reset. When you stop feeding your brain cheap stimulation, something remarkable happens. Your dopamine receptors start to heal. Your sensitivity comes back. The volume knob starts to return to the middle. And suddenly, the things that used to feel dull start to feel interesting again. The sunset starts to glow a little brighter. The food starts to taste a little richer. The conversation starts to feel a little deeper. Not because the world changed, but because your brain remembered how to notice it. This is not about going cold turkey. This is not about throwing away your phone or deleting every app. Extremes rarely work, and they rarely last. What does work is something much gentler and much more sustainable. It is about creating small gaps in your day where cheap dopamine is not welcome. Maybe it is the first 30 minutes after you wake up. No phone, just you in the morning. Maybe it is one meal a day where you sit down and actually taste the food instead of watching something while you eat. Maybe it is a 10-minute walk without earbuds, where you let your brain just wander and notice the world around you. These are not big changes. They will not make a dramatic montage, but they are exactly the kind of micro shifts that over time can completely change the way your brain processes pleasure and joy. There is a concept in neuroscience called dopamine fasting, and while the name sounds extreme, the idea is actually quite gentle. It is not about punishing yourself or going without pleasure. It is about recalibrating. It is about giving your brain a break from the constant hits so that it can remember what real reward feels like. Think of it like palate cleansing. If you eat candy all day, a fresh apple tastes bland. But if you stop the candy for a while, that same apple becomes crisp and sweet and satisfying. Your brain works the same way. The joy has always been there. You just need to clear the noise so you can hear it again. Let me tell you about something I tried. For 1 week, I decided to make one change. Every evening from 8 o'clock until I went to sleep, I put my phone in a drawer. Not turned off. Just out of sight. The first night was uncomfortable. I kept reaching for it without thinking. My hand would drift toward the spot where it usually sat and find empty air. I felt restless, like I was missing something. The second night was a little easier. By the third night, something started to shift. I picked up a book I had been meaning to read for months. I actually read it. Not 3 pages before getting distracted, but 40 pages. I looked out the window and noticed the sky was a shade of purple I had not seen in a long time. I had a conversation with someone in my house that lasted longer than usual, and I actually listened instead of half listening while scrolling. By the end of the week, those evening hours had become my favorite part of the day, not because I was doing anything special, but because I was actually there for my own life. That is what happens when you give your dopamine system a rest. You start to come back to yourself. You start to feel things again. Not the cheap, hollow rush of a notification, but the deep, quiet satisfaction of being present for a moment that actually matters. Now I want to talk about something that connects all of this to a bigger picture. When your brain is constantly chasing cheap dopamine, it does not just affect your ability to feel joy. It affects your relationships too. Because real connection, the kind that actually fills you up, requires presence. It requires patience. It requires you to sit with another person and give them your full attention, not the leftover scraps of attention between glances at your phone. And when your brain is trained to expect stimulation every few seconds, sitting with a real person in real silence can feel almost unbearable. So you pull out your phone. You scroll while they talk. You nod and say, but you are not really there. And the other person feels it. They feel the distance. They feel like they are competing with a screen. And slowly, without either of you meaning for it to happen, the connection fades. This is where oxytocin comes in. Oxytocin is often called the bonding chemical, and it thrives on presence, on eye contact, on physical warmth, on real moments shared between real people. But oxytocin cannot compete with cheap dopamine. When your brain is flooded with stimulation, the quiet chemistry of genuine connection gets drowned out. You start to prefer the easy dopamine of a text conversation over the messier, slower, more vulnerable experience of sitting across from someone and really talking. And then one day, you look up and realize you have hundreds of online interactions, but no one you can call when you are falling apart. You are surrounded by noise but starving for connection. This is not a small thing. This is one of the deepest costs of cheap dopamine. Cheap dopamine. It does not just take your joy, it takes your ability to be truly close to another human being. And loneliness, real loneliness, the kind where you are surrounded by people but feel invisible. That kind of loneliness is one of the most painful experiences a person can have. And it is becoming an epidemic, not because people do not want to connect, but because their brains have forgotten how. There is also a cortisol dimension here that is worth mentioning. Cortisol is your stress chemical, and it is deeply intertwined with your dopamine habits. When you are constantly stimulating your brain with fast content, your nervous system stays in a state of low-grade arousal. You are never fully relaxed. There is always a little buzz, a little restlessness, a little voice saying, check again, look again, scroll again. That constant hum of stimulation keeps your cortisol slightly elevated, which means your baseline stress is higher than it needs to be. You feel more anxious without knowing why. You snap at people more easily. You lie in bed at night with your mind racing even though you are physically exhausted. Your body is stuck in a loop of stimulation and stress, and it never gets the signal to truly rest. And when cortisol is chronically elevated, it does something else that is really insidious. It further dulls your dopamine receptors. So you get caught in a vicious cycle. Cheap dopamine raises your stress. Stress dulls your ability to feel pleasure. Dull pleasure makes you reach for more cheap dopamine, and around it goes. This is the trap. And most people do not even know they are in it because it happens so gradually that it feels normal. So what can you actually do? I'm not going to tell you to delete all your apps. I'm not going to tell you to throw your phone in the ocean. I'm not going to give you a 30-day challenge that sounds great on paper but falls apart by day 4. What I'm going to tell you is much simpler and much more honest. Start noticing. That is it. Just start noticing. Notice when you reach for your phone out of habit rather than need. Notice when you are eating something not because you are hungry, but because you are bored. Notice when you are scrolling, not because you want to see something specific, but because stopping feels uncomfortable. Notice when you are shopping, not because you need anything, but because clicking buy gives you a little rush. Notice when you are staying up late, not because you are not tired, but because going to sleep means the stimulation ends and the quiet begins. Just notice. Do not judge. Do not scold. Do not feel guilty. Just notice. Because awareness is the crack in the wall. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you start to make different choices. Not dramatic, life-overhauling choices. Small ones, quiet ones. The kind that nobody notices except you. Maybe you put the phone down for 10 minutes and just sit with the discomfort. Maybe you choose the apple over the chips and actually taste it. Maybe you turn off the podcast on your walk and listen to the world instead. Maybe you close the laptop at 10 o'clock and let the night be quiet. These are not heroic acts. They will not go viral. Nobody is going to applaud you for eating an apple in silence, but your brain will notice. Your dopamine receptors will start to heal. Your sensitivity will come back. And slowly, like dawn breaking after a long night, the color will start to return to your life. I want to tell you something that I wish someone had told me a long time ago. The goal of life is not to feel good all the time. The goal is to feel real, to feel the full spectrum of being human, to feel the sadness when it comes, and the joy when it comes, and the boredom, and the excitement, and the grief, and the wonder. When you chase constant stimulation, you do not get more joy. You get less. You get a flat, gray, numbed-out version of life where everything is fine, but nothing is beautiful. But when you allow yourself to feel the silence, to sit with the discomfort, to let your brain reset, you get something far more valuable than stimulation. You get aliveness. You get the ability to look at an ordinary Tuesday afternoon and feel a rush of gratitude for no reason at all. You get the ability to hear a song and feel your eyes sting with emotion. You get the ability to hold someone's hand and feel your whole body say, "This is where I belong." That is what cheap dopamine is stealing from you. Not happiness exactly, but the capacity for happiness, the ability to receive it when it arrives. And that capacity, I promise you, it can come back. You are not too far gone. Your brain is not permanently damaged. Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself, does not have an expiration date. Whether you are 20 or 50 or 70, your brain can learn new patterns. It can relearn the beauty of the slow, the quiet, the simple. But it needs you to give it a chance. It needs you to create the space. It needs you to choose, even just once a day, the real thing over the easy thing. Here's what I want to leave you with. Joy was never supposed to be loud. Real joy is quiet. It is the warmth of sunlight on your face in the morning. It is the sound of someone you love laughing in the next room. It is the taste of water when you are truly thirsty. It is the feeling of finishing something hard and knowing you did not give up. These things do not flash. They do not ding. They do not send you notifications. They just sit there, waiting for you to notice them. They have been waiting for a long time. And the beautiful thing is, they are patient. They will wait a little longer. But I hope you do not make them wait too long, because the longer you stay on the treadmill of cheap dopamine, the quieter they become. And one day, if you are not careful, you might forget they were ever there at all. So tonight or tomorrow morning, or whenever you have 5 quiet minutes, try this. Put the phone away, close your eyes, take 3 slow breaths, and just listen. Listen to the world around you. Listen to the sound of your own breathing. Listen to the silence beneath the silence. That is where your joy has been hiding. Not in the next notification, not in the next purchase, not in the next scroll, but right here, in this moment, in this breath, in this ordinary, unremarkable, perfectly imperfect moment of being alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this video made you feel something, if it made you think about your habits even a little differently, I would love for you to share it with someone who might need it. Leave a comment and tell me what your first small step will be. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring these conversations about the brain, about emotions, about the way we live, and how we can live a little better. Not perfectly, just a little more awake, a little more present, a little more real. I will see you in the next one.